should think that it's enough for them just to watch the panelists and to take in what they want to take in and then simply go away. That ain't how it's going to be. So if you don't volunteer, you may be volunteered. So you may as well think now about what your contribution to what's going to be a highly interactive hour together is going to be like. And I very much hope that by the time I finish this sentence, we'll be ready to go online. Friends, welcome. Welcome to the launch of REACT. Welcome to an event which is streaming online from here, the garage in Nairobi. And we are in a very special place, an exciting techie hub full of young entrepreneurs and people with ideas. We're at an exciting place at an exciting time. At an exciting time for Africa, at an exciting time for solar energy and renewables. We are launching today the latest competition of the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund, a competition specifically focused on solar household systems in Africa, a competition that is reaching out in this REACT space beyond East Africa to Southern Africa and, importantly, West Africa. So we're reaching with REACT, delivered by the ACF, funded by the Department for International Development of the United Kingdom. We're reaching out to Malawi, to Zambia, to Zimbabwe, and to Sierra Leone. We're going to begin with a panel discussion. We've got a distinguished panel full of ideas, full of information. We want them to spark off each other, but we also want them to spark off you. Not just you present here in Nairobi, but all of you in the World Wide Web who are, as we speak, actually looking in, but we want you to do more than look, we want you to participate. So please share with us online your thoughts. We've also got a capacity for you to ask questions in the important question and answer and interactive session that we will be having later on. And all of the output of our time together today is going to be posted online on the website, so you'll all have a record of what occurred here. Now, we're kicking off our event by turning to the first of our panelists. We're going to be quite strict about time. Let me warn them all of that now. There's no going on and on and on. You answer the questions in the time allotted to you. And they're all well versed at doing that. We're going to begin by getting a sense of what REACT is all about from someone who has been in the forefront of this particular exciting development. And that is Dr. Paul Greener, who is the CEO of the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund. So Paul, turning to you, tell us what REACT is all about. Tell us about how it started and its role within the wider portfolio that the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund manages.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul. Perhaps I'll start off with just saying something about the AECF, which is the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund. The basic premise, what we try to do is to harness the resources, the creativity, the innovation of the private sector, be it small companies or medium or large, and harness that creativity to develop products, to develop services that are beneficial to our target group, which is the rural poor, or people living in remote and poor rural areas. I think that in the 9 years or so that AECF has been operating, we've demonstrated the validity of that premise. We've funded some 250 plus businesses all around Africa, in 23 or 24 different countries of Africa. And they have developed a range of innovative ways of doing business and doing it in a viable way that actually brings financial returns, but also delivers a great deal of value to people and communities throughout Africa. The REACT funding window is one of the parts of AECF. We focus on agribusiness, but also on renewable energy. So REACT stands for Renewable Energy and Adaptation to Climate Technology. It's a bit of a mouthful, so I'll just refer to it as REACT from now on. It's a little bit newer. It's been one of our most dynamic funding windows. It's been running now for 3 or 4 years. We've received very generous funding from various different donor agencies to the tune of around 73 million for that funding window, and have funded over 70 individual companies who are developing a wide range of different types of renewable energy and climate adaptation products. The focus has been primarily up to now on the East Africa countries and also Mozambique. And this new window that we're just launching today will start to expand that territory into new countries. And the aspiration is that the REACT window will operate Africa-wide, and hopefully over the next couple of years will expand into many other new countries as well. It's been probably both our most dynamic, but also in some ways our most successful window. It's attracted very innovative companies into the fold. In East Africa, just as an example, we early on put funding support into a group of 8 different companies that were trialing pay-as-you-go systems for delivering household solar systems. At that point, there was a very new idea. It was very early days. And many of those companies have grown up into being some of the most dynamic companies in East Africa or Africa as a whole. I think the purpose of this new funding window is to try to expand that sort of innovation into other parts of Africa, to trial it in new contexts, often different kinds of contexts where perhaps we don't have the advantages that have been here in East Africa. But calling upon, in a way, what we do is we define the problem, and then we say to the private sector, what solutions can you come up with to that problem? And if you have solutions, then we'll help you to make those happen.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Paul, and thank you for keeping to time. If I can now turn to you, Carolina, if I may, Dr. Carolina Barreto. Carolina is the Beyond the Grid advisor for Kenya, for
For Power Africa.
For Power Africa. And you are, well, you've had a career in this particular area. You were Senior Renewable Energy Advisor for the Powering Agriculture Initiative. So you make that link between agriculture, rural communities, and solar household systems. So tell us about some of the technical challenges that the sector faces, and also not just the challenges, but what are the opportunities that access to solar power in this particular form presents for rural communities?
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. Actually, so I am the Power Africa advisor for Kenya, and with Tetra Tech, a Power Africa contractor. Power Africa has been around now for about 3 years, and it has a component called Beyond the Grid, which is anything under 10 megawatts. So from 1 watt to 10,000 watts, that's what I cover. But we have a team of about 10 advisors, 12 advisors actually across sub-Saharan Africa, including Southern Africa. And we definitely deal and support a lot of companies. Across our 12 advisors, we're supporting 90 companies. And only here in Kenya, we're supporting about 40 companies, 22 solar home system companies, 10 mini-grid companies, and 10 captive power companies. So I definitely can talk about the challenges and opportunities. And the numbers actually that came out yesterday from Gogla give a very good snapshot of those challenges, right? So in the first quarter of 2016, for instance, 4 million solar products were deployed. The second quarter, 2016, about 3 million products. So there was definitely a decrease in the number of solar products deployed, reported through Gogla. And one of the reasons was pretty much from June to December last year, there were the tax exemptions that the sector used to have were pretty much removed, and the sector was heavily taxed, and it definitely affected the number of sales in the last half of the year. So part of the role, and actually here Charles was actually very active with Correa, is to support the sector in pretty much the public and private sector facilitation, explain to the Kenyan government and to the East Africa community countries what are the benefits of tax exemptions if you want to get this sector to grow faster. And the other challenge that actually is affecting right now the sales of the systems here in Kenya are elections, really, and food prices have gone up as well. And actually, that definitely has affected some sales. The drought has affected also a lot of sales and put a lot of restraints into the end users, right, and customers of these solar companies. So these are some of the challenges, opportunities. Like I said, we're supporting only in Kenya about 22 companies, and a lot of people think, oh, that's way too much just for Kenya. But I have to remind everybody that, Kenya is the lab of Africa, and a lot of exciting innovation happens here and then gets transferred to other countries. And we have a consumer base of 600 million Africans that need this technology, and we need more than just 22 companies for that.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Karana. Kenya, you've heard, is the lab. We're in the garage, so we're going to actually make it happen. We're going to get the show on the road. And somebody who has been getting the show on the road in Kenya and doing so as an advocate for the sector, doing so as a practitioner himself, but importantly representing the sector to policymakers in Kenya and indeed beyond, is our next panelist, Charles Munchunku. And Charles, you were chair of the Kenya Renewable Energy Association, and so you're an obvious advocate and an ambassador for this particular sector. I mean, why has it taken off in the way that it has in Kenya? And what do you see for the newcomers who are coming now from Malawi, from Zambia, from Zimbabwe, from Sierra Leone, who are going to have access to this particular competition? What do you think it's going to do for them, and how can they make the best use of the opportunity that this represents? We're talking what, £8 million? That's a lot of money. $10 million. How's it going to act as a catalyst in those countries?
Thank you. I had the benefit of joining the sector when it was still developing in 2003. And I remember the cheapest solar product you could buy was $200. It was $200. It was a 14-watt panel, and you had to buy this in pieces. You could not. You had to buy your panel separately from your battery and your charge controller, and then you had to look for a technician to help you put this together. And what it did is that it resulted in a lot of non-functioning systems, and because it was expensive, people said solar didn't work and it was expensive. And that's back in 2003. And a lot of interesting things have happened since. I think one of the most interesting things to happen was the IFC, the World Bank Lighting Africa program, which was a market commercialization program. And what it tried to do was to show manufacturers, show investors that there was a potential for off-grid solar products. And it came up with a fantastic number for sub-Saharan Africa. It said that $5 billion were being spent every year on kerosene for lighting. And all of a sudden, manufacturers were drooling. They were saying, oh, if we can develop a product that can substitute this, then essentially we have a $5 billion market. And a number of interesting technological innovations were also happening. LED technology was advancing. Lithium-ion batteries were also advancing. Energy-efficient products. And all this kind of, and pay-as-you-go, and all this, mobile money transfer technology. And all this came together at a very interesting time. And at the same time, React in 2010 or around the same time launched its first funding window. And all of a sudden, businesses that had been designing products had an opportunity to take them to the market, to try different delivery models. How do we sell this? How do we market it? What delivery channels do we use? And a lot of them have become successful models in Kenya, in East Africa. And these are the countries you mentioned, Malawi, Sierra Leone, Zimbabwe, haven't had this same opportunity, especially from the funding side. And I think, spreading this window to other sub-Saharan countries creates this interesting opportunity for businesses that have been successful here to also go and tap into those markets there, or to take these business models to the next level, to target bottom of the pyramid customers, to develop more affordable products and so on. So I think it's really interesting times, and I think React has done a lot to make that happen.
Interesting times indeed. Thank you very much for that. And you mentioned specifically the IFC. We're very fortunate on the Africa Enterprise Challenge Fund to have as a board member Jean-Philippe Prosper, who's with us this evening. Jean-Philippe, I wonder if you, having been at the heart of it as a vice president of the IFC, having been at the genesis too of this particular initiative, can you give us, as it were, the big picture in terms of the role of the private sector in this area, growing the sector, and its impact in taking rural people out of poverty, promoting sustainable livelihoods on the continent? Philippe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul. Yes, indeed, I've been fortunate in a way I was at the time director for Eastern and Southern Africa when we launched here in Nairobi, Lighting Africa. So I can say I know it well. You guys are the specialists, but I guess I know it a little bit. Indeed, we have put a lot of funding on that, and it really made a big difference into the market, as you say, because when we also ourselves even realized that you had that 5 billion for the market, so wow, what's the opportunity? So part of our role was to sensibilize the private sector and some entrepreneurs, to know what are the opportunities, and also bring those products that we didn't have into this market. So we facilitated that. We had a lot of new products coming, so people saw the benefit, what could be done. Now, and to address what Paul was saying in terms of the private sector, basically, the private sector, like a bunch of the young entrepreneurs and others, will come with ideas. They will come often with seed money, and however they need, support. And here I see the role of an institution like AECF to accompany private businesses, and this is really part of the fundamental role of AECF. And AECF will be able to help private sector into what I would call a high-risk environment, because those are businesses are startups. When we were talking about Lighting Africa, when all of those things were happening, it was very difficult for some of the businesses, and I'm sure, Charles, you can tell us more about it, to go to a commercial bank to get funding. Because clearly those are new ideas, startups, new businesses. It's a lot of them innovative. And obviously, commercial banks are not going to put their money out like that. And so basically, what an institution like AECF will do in their role supporting the private sector is to look at those ideas, those that make sense, and we will come in and take that level of risk in putting additional seed money to help those businesses come often from concept ideas to real businesses, or to really kind of startups to grow and come onto their feet. So the role of the private sector is fundamental, because government is not going into that. And the role of an institution like AECF, AECF fills a huge void that you are into the market. Because as I said, no commercial banker is going to come and put their money into what is almost venture capital funding, frankly. And that's why the type of funding that AECF is providing, whether it's soft money, whether it's grants or zero interest capital, is really a must to get these businesses to grow, and eventually after that, we can through AECF Connect help them, second round, get more funding, leverage, etc., etc. So this is how I see the world.
Thank you very much indeed, Jean-Philippe. Access to capital, a must to get the businesses up, running, starting down the road. The AECF as a companion as we go down the road together. Now, we're part of a wider web community at this event today. And I think it's important that we recognize the role of social media. So I wonder, Carolina, if you'd like to share with us some of your thoughts about social media.
No, just quickly, because somebody came with a sign. So for everybody live streaming, they can use the hashtag ReactSolar for everybody in social media. Yeah.
Okay, Carolina is reminding us of the importance of that hashtag. In fact, say it again.
Hashtag ReactSolar.
Great. Well, there you are. You've got it. So you've heard the message. We're on time, aren't we? It's 6 o'clock. We're now going to go into another stage of the event that we are a participant in this evening as we launch React SHS. So I'm going to hand you over now to, is Victor's going to, good? Victor, where are you? Come up. Great. You're going to take us in now to some detail about the competition itself, and you're going to show us a video. Over to you.
So thank you very much for those who have made time. The panelists, you'll just stay on. Maybe the two of you to move about. You will have to create a bit of space. But don't go too far because people will be asking you questions in a few minutes. Now we are going to show you a video, and the video is meant to help you understand the processes involved and how you apply for this. So if we are ready, we can have the video streaming. And then after the video, we will then follow up with clarifications, and then we get back to question and answer session with the panelists. Welcome for this. Are we on? Picking up in a few minutes, yeah. It's not a long video. It's going to take like 3 minutes, and
so it takes longer to set up.
It takes longer.
We are supposed to be the techie and that.
It doesn't work when you want it to.
What happened to the techie?
I think you're going to have to buy some time.
So
I'm really glad that this session hasn't disappointed. I've never yet come across a launch where the tech has worked seamlessly, and this is not going to be an exception to that. While we are waiting, and you'll signal when we're ready for the video, I'm going to ask you, Victor, just to give, your colleague, just to give some specific details about the competition, about the nuts and bolts, so we're all aware of those and not wasting the time we have at our disposal. So come on over and talk.
Sure, thanks very much, Paul. Sorry about the technology issues. So I'm going to jump start to what I was due to say at the end of the presentation. I think that tells you a lot about the eligibility criteria and what the objectives of React is. So I, as Coffee International, we're very excited to work with AECF on the fund, the React Household Solar Fund. And I want to talk a little bit more about the process for actually applying. And the process, the two-stage process that we will be going through over the next couple of months. Once you actually see the presentation, you might not be able to read all of the eligibility criteria in one go and certainly not memorize them. They'll be online immediately after this event. So please go online and register and get the criteria there. We have a two-stage process. The concept notes will be open from today. We will have a deadline on the 25th of June. At that stage, we will carry out a review of each of the applicants. Reviews will carry out in terms of both technical and financial viabilities of the programs themselves, or projects, the businesses that we will support. We're looking for a portfolio, as the panel has already discussed. And we will seek to shortlist between 18 and 20 companies spread across the 4 target countries that React Household Solar is actually covering. Once you, the shortlisted company will actually work very closely with Coffee International then through the process. The competition management team will have a person assigned to each grantee or each applicant to take them through the business plan stage. So we will then undertake a visit to each of the grantees or the applicants during the process, and that will include a due diligence, and it will also include at least a day's support, ensuring that people are really understanding what we are looking for and are putting together the best application that we possibly can. The deadline for actually business plan applications will be on the 20th of August, and at that stage we will review applications together with the ACF, and an investment committee will be held towards the end of September. So at the end of that, there'll be a contracting phase, and hopefully programs will be completely contracted by the end of mid-December. So that's the process. In terms of next steps, we want this to be inclusive. We're in Nairobi today. In the next couple of weeks, we are planning to hold in-country sessions in all of the 4 countries. There'll be Coffee and ACF together in those countries. We'll be in other tech hubs in those countries, vibrant places. And that will be an opportunity to speak to country officers or companies that are already here, but also speak to broader stakeholders, and for us to really understand what the challenges and opportunities are in the market. That will aid us during the actual review process. So that will be announced, the actual venues and the dates for that will be announced in the next couple of days. So stay tuned. And I'm kind of hoping that this technology, well, it really is taking a long time today. But
are we ready?
I'm afraid it's the hardware.
Okay, fine. Then we're going to go straight into the discussion. If the hardware sort of picks up, you'll let us know, and we'll then go and have an opportunity to look at the video. But you can imagine it.
it's really good.
And you're going to see much more of it when it comes online, and you'll just wonder that you didn't see it now. But why don't I ask the panel, please, if you would, to come back. And I'm going to open up the discussion to the floor. If you just say who you are, what you do, what your business is, and then make your point or ask your question. Don't feel that you have to disguise the point you want to make in a question. It's tortuous, it's convoluted, it takes too long. Make your point or ask your question. Okay, who's going to kick us off? You know the rules of engagement here. If you don't volunteer, you will be volunteered. So, yeah, you sir.
Yes.
What's your name? Why are you here?
So my name is Vitek. From Devergy. Hello? So my name is Vitek. I'm from Devergy. We're building and maintaining solar microgrids in Tanzania. And so this program is focused on solar home systems.
Yeah.
and we're focused on microgrids. And so I was wondering if panelists could elaborate on how this could spill over into a company like ours, who, although values solar home systems and in certain ways incorporates them into our business model, does this really include us, or does it exclude us?
Thank you very much for that. Microgrids, solar home systems, mutual benefit, synergies. Who's going to answer? Paul.
Yeah, thanks for the question. This particular program is a fairly narrowly prescribed one on solar household systems, and solar household systems that have the potential to have some transformational change at a household level. So strictly speaking, mini grids or microgrids are not included in this particular round. We are hoping in the future that we will have further rounds of REACT that are wider and would include the sort of thing you do.
Thank you very much for that. Any other points? Talking of further rounds, I wonder if, Maria, you'd like to just talk to us about the role of your development agency in this whole area of REACT, because I know it's something that is a very real concern and interest to you.
Yes, thank you. My name is Maria Stridsman, and I'm working for SIDA, the Swedish SIDA. And we are also preparing, together with the ASCF, another phase 2 for REACT. And we collaborate, of course, with the other donors, DFID included. We have a meeting tomorrow to finalize some thoughts and ideas of how we can improve coordination. But the REACT that we will launch will then be broader, not we, I mean that we will fund, and that ASCF will launch. And we have discussed that since DFID is more narrowly focused on solar home systems, ours will not be. So then mini grids will be included. And it will include Ethiopia, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Liberia, Burkina Faso, and Mali.
Thank you very much indeed for that, and thank you for the breadth of vision and the passion that you personally, as well as a Swedish Development Agency, bring to this particular subject. Now, I'm going to move amongst you.
Somebody else in the back.
Good, excellent. All right, and then there's a gentleman there.
Victor is going to wait.
Victor, you're going to take it? Good. Then the gentleman in the black leather jacket over there.
Hello, this microphone might work. I'm working with DFID on an assignment of the Sierra Leone Renewable Energy Association, and they're very interested in this. My question is, are they going to, is AACF going to travel to Sierra Leone and meet the stakeholders there, and how are they going to engage? Because they want to know, and they've heard about this, but they want to know a lot more.
I can answer that. I'd like to swing it around. I can answer that question as chair of AECF. Yes, we will certainly be going to Sierra Leone. We will be engaging directly with the stakeholders.
No when?
No, but it will be in the next few weeks and months, because we regard that direct engagement as being very important, and we have an ambition in the AECF to expand our footprint in West Africa, and Sierra Leone is very much a part of that. So we will be engaging with Sierra Leone in the weeks and months, and indeed in the future, so far as this particular window, so far as this particular competition is concerned, but also in relation to others. Sir? Yeah.
Sorry. We will be engaging in Sierra Leone in hopefully around 2 weeks' time, but we will update you within a couple of days.
I'm thinking about it in a couple of weeks, so
yeah,
it would be good to coordinate.
well, absolutely. It'll be on the website in the next couple of days with that schedule.
Sir?
I'm Charles Wasike. I work with the Embassy of Denmark. in charge of support to SMEs in climate technology and agribusiness. We supported REACT round 1 and 2. Now my question is, when I'm in the office, part of my daily activities is to read reports. And I've read many reports from the partners that are under my portfolio. And they are all good reports presenting very nice outcomes from the field. But when you come back and look at the bigger picture, like for example in Kenya, and each of the reports, each of the interventions in agribusiness and climate technology has an inclination to poverty reduction. But when you look at the bigger picture, an example in Kenya, poverty situation is getting worse and worse. So maybe we ask ourselves, this is not only to the panelists, maybe all of us. Even myself, I sometimes fail to answer the question, where is the missing link?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that question. I'm going to come to you, Charles, for a response. And then I'm going to go to Jean-Philippe, because this is all about scaling up and about impact. And you put your finger on a very real issue. Charles.
It's a good question. And I mean, sometimes you wonder, should we talk about energy access? Are we solving the energy access problem? Or are we solving energy access and poverty? And I think once you distinguish it, then it becomes clearer. Because, I mean, these solutions are targeting households that are otherwise using kerosene or don't have, don't have an electricity connection, are using expensive diesel for water pumping, etc., etc. And we're not saying that, no one says that if you get a grid connection today, then your poverty problems are solved. And I think it's unfair to look at solar in the same way, that if you get a solar lighting solution or a solar home system or a solar business system, then all of a sudden it's going to address your poverty or your income problems. And I think it's unfair to think about it in that way. I think there are opportunities where there's a direct link, but those are rare, those are few and far between, and they need to be deliberate. And I think this requires a lot more thinking. I can't give you an answer to your question.
Karina, of course.
Yeah, just to comment quickly on just anecdotals from what we're hearing from the field, but also real data, right? So I mentioned a lot of numbers at the beginning, and some of them actually also coming from Gogla worldwide. So again, these are products servicing the poor, but as Charles said, not necessarily targeting poverty. But we have seen savings of $200 per household for the lifetime of the product. And we're talking about billions of dollars worth of savings for those poor households. And then we have from other companies just anecdotes talking about, and actually not even anecdotes, the Kenya Solar Access Program, COSAP, from designed by the Kenyan government and the World Bank, originally kept thinking about larger systems and started with tier 3 as a minimum level of access in Kenya. And they moved from tier 3 to tier 1 because they realized that all of those counties that they were targeting in the north, a lot of those populations were nomadic. So to install, let's say, a 500-watt system, for pastoralists that move around, wouldn't make sense. So we hear a lot of companies that are solar home companies that are deploying products in those situations, and a lot of farmers that are saving cattle and just managing their cattle more appropriately thanks to energy access now.
Thank you for that, Karina. Jean-Philippe, scaling up.
Well, I think part of the reason is that the problem is much more complex than that. And why I'm saying much more complex is because you can do it directly. I'll take some concrete example. At the same time all of those things are happening, you have great population growth, right? I mean, basically, whether in Kenya or in Africa in general, at the rate the population is growing, is significant compared to the other countries. So which means new people who need more food and, the needs are growing in the country. So now what you have in solar or in some of these projects, it's a certain impact. having said that, I mean, if I took a look at AECF, for example, over the last, 9 years, AECF has financed, roughly 257 projects, and probably saying on 23 countries, but the impact on the people, it's significant when you consider, but it's 10 million people. So we say, all of the studies have indicated that there is a potential impact that we have had on 10 million people in rural areas. But the population growth over that period obviously has been more significant, and that's just one element. So you cannot take just one and hit it. You will have to do it at the macro level and look at all of the data. Just to tell you, you cannot do the direct thing like that.
Thank you for that, and thank you for that. And the good news is that of the 71 East African businesses that the 4 rounds of REACT have funded so far, that has provided over 500,000 rural households with electricity. That has created 3,000 jobs and leveraged in an additional $150 million. That's a lot of money. That's a real contribution in terms of jobs and livelihoods, and it's 500,000 households who wouldn't otherwise have had access to electricity. And that's serious, and we need to celebrate that, and we're extending that with this next round of REACT SHS. We are on the World Wide Web and on social media. You'll be glad to know, Carolina. And as a result of that, we have a question, an important question from Elizabeth Wells. How can we increase the role of women in solar energy? An important question. Women as entrepreneurs, delivering the businesses and the projects. Women also as small business people benefiting from access to the sort of power that SHS can engender. Paul, would you like to say something about that?
Well, I'm not sure I want to answer it, but I do want to put it out to the audience we have here, and particularly those people who work with the companies who are providing this access. I will say, though, that in this particular competition, the REACT Household Solar, a major criterion we'll be looking at is the impact the impact that the funded projects and the funded businesses will have both on women entrepreneurs, on women working within the companies, and particularly on women in the households who are, in general, the main managers of the household energy situation.
This represents a new emphasis and focus for AECF going forward. We are absolutely determined that the potential that is to be found amongst women and young people in Africa should be unlocked by our activities, and that I know is something that our board champions. We have another series of questions. I'm going to ask one of them, then I'm coming to the participants here in the garage in Nairobi. So Oliver James Bowler from Sierra Leone asks, well, some pretty fundamental questions. What are the other benefits of solar? What is the biggest challenge for solar energy, solar technology uptake? Let's actually deal with the issue of uptake, and let's have some experience from the room in that regard, from anyone currently working in the sector. Any volunteers? What issues have arisen in terms of uptake for the offer on hand, and how can they best be overcome? Yes. Right at the back. If you just wait till the camera turns around on you, so we have
get my good side, please.
Great.
So Trevor Rees from ENSO Impact, and this is just a comment in relation to factors preventing uptake of solar in Malawi, and I think one of the factors has been the quality of the product that's coming into the market. I guess counterfeit solar products that don't actually function at all, or very low quality, just driving down interest and business in solar more generally. That's certainly been the case to some extent in Malawi.
Thank you very much for that. So counteracting counterfeit and other activities. we've now got a contribution, I'm very glad, volunteer from in the form of one of our board members, Duncan Anyango. Duncan.
Thank you so much. I think that question is the probably one that is pertinent across the continent. One of the things is that the areas or the regions that have been able to see a marked improvement in terms of uptake of solar products are those that have been able to resolve the issue of financing, the ability to finance that service or the ability to finance that product. And therefore, when you look at the examples of those companies that have provided pay-as-you-go solutions, which have made it possible for those, especially those in the low-income communities, to be able to afford, either on a daily basis or on a much more frequent basis, an amount that their household itself can afford. And they're using technology like the mobile platforms to be able to pay and therefore get access to that technology. If you combine those two, then that increases the chances of a marked improvement in uptake.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Duncan. We've got a question from Malawi, Laura Omia from Malawi. We need to think how to increase the private sector investment in off-grid energy. Any thoughts about that? You look like someone who's interested in investing in off-grid energy, which I presume is why you're here. So you're going to share us your thoughts, some of the obstacles you've faced, some of the opportunities that you're seizing.
Thank you. This is Shashank from Energy for Impact. I just volunteered, got volunteered for this. So I think there are a few challenges for raising investment by the solar home system companies, and one of them is access to commercial debt, because as you get into a pay-as-you-go business model, you're providing end-user financing yourself and you're taking it on the books. And the reason you're doing that is because it is hard for other financial institutions to take that risk, and that's why the companies are doing it themselves. Now the issue that becomes is now the companies have to take debt, and especially if these are new companies, getting access to debt is going to be a challenge. And in the initial phases, they are financing it through equity or through grants. But as these companies start growing, there needs to be more debt getting available for them, and that's where there are talks about securitizations of receivables or getting financing from outside in US dollars. Then they take the forex risk, because the fundamental issue is getting access to debt in African markets is really, really difficult for these companies because their business models are still innovative, they're not proven, even the pay-as-you-go business model. So I think that's one of the key challenges that needs to be solved on the investment side.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Duncan.
Thank you very much. I also happen to be the head of Acumen East Africa, and therefore this is a problem that we face on a daily basis. I think if you look at it in terms of ability to, to attract investment, is that, the fundamental issue is that the customer base is actually one of the most difficult customer bases. Therefore, you cannot assure a business of the revenue model, or even just being able to stabilize demand of the service or the product. And the reason is that solar is often off the grid. The terrain is probably one of the most difficult terrains. The customer is, in most cases, can't afford the service, and therefore you actually have to come up with innovative ways of ensuring that they can pay. So when you combine all these issues, it has a negative effect on the ability for the business to really develop a model that is bankable, a model that can convince an investor to actually put in money. And that's the reason why there's a role for impact investors like Acumen to be able to come in early. But also, there's even a greater role for AECF, who actually come in even earlier than an impact investor, provide soft capital to enable that risk to be taken, and to enable that, and to help the companies to de-risk their model to an extent to which they can attract commercial capital. So it's a process, it takes time, and it takes the effort of all the various players within the ecosystem.
Thank you very much indeed for that. We've got some hands going up at the back. You've already asked a question, so we'll come to you in a minute. We'll come to your contribution in a minute. There's that gentleman that hasn't asked a question or made a contribution. We'll go to him first. Over to you, sir.
My name is Julio.
You've just waited until the camera comes on.
Hello. I guess I have two observations. One on the matching contribution criteria. On the evidence accepted, it says here assigned timesheets. Can we assume that this is signed term sheets? Just one observation. The second one is the terminology around grants and repayable grants. I think this is inherited from the other days. Why there is still this confusion about the grant aspect of the fund and what is a loan effectively? And then the third is thanks for coming to Sierra Leone. We're very happy to have the fund going to West Africa. That's it.
Thank you very much for that. Paul, I wonder if you deal with this issue, because I know it's one that's given us as a new board some considerable cause for thought around grants, repayable loans, and indeed give the participants some sense of our thinking going forward about a range of other potential options that we might be looking at.
Thanks, Paul. I won't address the question on the term sheets. I assume it does mean term sheet. On the products, this window will also have both outright grants and repayable grants. We will certainly be moving to reduce any confusion between the two. They'll be for separate things, there'll be separate contracts. So different companies have different needs, and sometimes there's a need for an outright grant, sometimes there's a need for a repayable grant, which then also can be recycled and finance other businesses. Going forward, we are, as an institution, looking at other potential options, which would include low interest or sub-commercial loans. It could include equity, and certainly could include guarantees or linking with other guarantee providers. So we are looking more broadly. That won't necessarily apply at this stage in the next 6 months, because we would have to tool ourselves up to handle that. I'd also like to say that we don't see ourselves as acting in a vacuum, and we are we have a niche. Duncan referred to this. We fund these very early stage companies, but we realize that there are a lot of other institutions working out there, Energy for Impact, Acumen, and many others. And we will seek very proactively to work with those other partners as part of a broader ecosystem of support.
Thank you very much for that. We have an observation for the brother from Sierra Leone at the back. Your observation, sir.
It was to do with the other the financing question.
Far away.
Fire away. Quality and financing are pretty closely connected. Most of the solar market in Africa is over the counter, and over the counter requires no investment, very little investment. If you sell TVs, if you sell irons, if you sell household appliances, you can sell solar, but you don't provide services. I'm from Kenya, but when I was in Sierra Leone, I walked through the main street in Freetown. I saw 15 shops selling solar and 20 shops selling Pico Solar, and it was all Chinese junk, and a lot of the solar panels had no quality ratings. So where does financing come in? Well, financing enables us to move from just over-the-counter models to models that provide services to the customer. So that's why we see M-Kopa, that's why we see Off-Grid Electric. We see these groups, Mobisol, Azuri, which can provide solar systems but on a credit basis instead of all once up. And all of those companies provide ongoing services. However, if you want to be one of those companies, you move from being an equipment supplier to a financier. And you have, and once you move from becoming an equipment supplier, you are a technical company, you're an engineer, and then when you get over 10,000 customers, as M-Kopa and Off-Grid Electric have done, you move into becoming a debt provider. And the skills required for a debt provider are very different than the skills provided for a solar equipment supplier. And also you enter the valley of death, because if you do not increase your sales to a certain point, but you've increased your sales force and your overheads, and you can't turn it around so that you're making a profit, then you will keep going down instead of turning it into a profit. And we've seen that happen with some of the new entrants, some of the solar players right now. So getting through that valley of death is really what this is about. But quality and finance are very closely connected.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Sir.
Hello. Mine is a question with regard to how AECF goes towards funding these ventures. Now, in a situation where you have a company which already is trying to venture out with regards to that direction, but already has potential candidates who might meet your criteria as set out in the application form, will you break it down to do it to the individual companies, or you can finance like the umbrella who is handling the various companies trying to do the same?
Yeah, if Paul Greener could answer that one.
Or maybe Victor, you can take that directly.
Or Victor, but
so
please.
I can respond to that. So there are instances when we finance a company as a whole. That means the business you do is the only thing that company does. And we normally say in that case, the project is the same as the institution. And there are instances when we put money in specific business units within a particular company. And for that case, we then have a contractual agreement with the company itself to finance that particular business you do for renewable energy, for this case solar. So it's case by case. And what to note is that the due diligence processes involved for those two different scenarios are quite different, because for one particular case we will look at a project within a company, and for another case we will be looking at the company also as the project. So you get more information. We attach mentors to you and business planners who advise you, and we get along with that.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Victor. Now, we've got 10 more minutes. Have you got a point? We've got 10 more minutes online. We have many people in the room who have not said a word. And before I turn to the panel, I want, for their last words, I want to deal with a phenomena that exists widely in audiences and in participatory events such as this. You say nothing in the course of the event. Then, when you move to the drinks, or when you then leave the premises, you think, I ought to have said that. Or you ask yourself, tossing and turning in bed tonight, why didn't I say that? So this is your opportunity, before we move to the final panel, just to say whatever is in your heart and mind, to say even why you're here. And that is actually our Akan tradition. We're in East Africa, but I was brought up in West Africa. And in our Akan tradition, when you come amongst new people for the first time, you don't give your name, you don't say what your job is, you don't even say who your mom and dad were. You simply answer the question that the chief puts you. Why are you here? And if you think about it, that's a very good question. Why are you here? What brings you here? So why don't some of you unburden yourself of that question before we turn to the panel? And if you don't do it voluntarily, I'm going to do it for you. So just turn the camera around on that person there. Why are you here?
Hi, my name is Edwin. I work with AECF, so we are actually launching this. So welcome.
Thank you. That's a good one. You're here to earn your bread. Good? I'm glad to see you here. Now, you don't work for AECF. Why are you here? Turn to her.
My name is Mombi. I work with a company called GiveWatts. We distribute solar in rural Kenya and Tanzania, and we actually trialed Malawi some time back, and there was a bit of challenges. So I think it was just interesting to see that this is happening. That's why I'm here.
Good. You don't work for AECF. Why are you here?
I work for Energy for Impact, and Energy for Impact have already spoken. So we are very interested in supporting entrepreneurs developing solar home systems. Right now we focus on East Africa, but we're already supporting mini-grids across the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. So we are potentially interested in doing more in some of the countries that are covered under this program.
Thank you very much. There's always a group at the back who think they've escaped. My sister, why are you here?
My name is Purnima. I work for a company called Ngaza that is a pay-as-you-go platform provider. I'm here on behalf of the distributors that we work with across these markets to see if these funds will help them scale up from their pilots.
Thank you very much. One last chance before I turn to the panel. Hands up, anyone that wants to say anything? You've had your chance.
So again, my name is Vitek, head of finance at Devergy, operating mainly in Tanzania with solar microgrids. One thing that's particularly of interest to us and something that has been of discussion in many other forums is the idea of economic development. Solar is not the one solution for poverty. I think we know that, and this is definitely a complex puzzle. And so I'm very interested to hear from the panelists how they see AECF contributing to economic development. And so to give you more of a realistic connection with what we're dealing with, we're interested in partnering with other companies to enter villages, to really support, be it from the medical access side, be it from the insurance side, be it from sanitation, agriculture, et cetera. Because one important part that's missing is the lack of organizations or businesses in these areas.
Thank you very much indeed for that. We're now going to go to the panel. I'm going to begin with you, Paul Greener.
Okay, thank you. I'll very briefly just respond to that question. Economic development in Africa is a very, very big topic, and nobody can do it all. But as I said before, we are going to be much more intentional about our role as partners with others. And also what AECF is its network of businesses. So there's 250, hopefully there'll be 500. And being more intentional on bringing those different businesses together to find joint solutions to problems, whether it be in rural Tanzania or elsewhere. But finally, also, it just falls to me to welcome everybody to the React Household Solar Competition, and particularly those of you who have joined us on the web from the 4 countries involved. There will be many more opportunities for you to put in questions to us, and we will be joining you in country over the next few weeks. So we look forward to your continued interest in us.
Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you for all you're doing. Dr. Carolina Barreto, your last remarks.
All right. So as a final thought, I just wanted to commend AECF for this a grant opportunity, and actually pick up where Mark Hankins left on the death of Valley. So we have many companies, many startups, and a very still nascent sector. With very mixed messages, from investors. Some investors think that the sector is growing too fast. Some of them think that the sector is not growing fast enough. Some investors think that there's already debt available for the sector, so they are retiring. So for sure, the second cohort is definitely struggling to pick up. And again, like I said, there are definitely more companies that need to access and provide services to this market, 600 million market, right, customers market. So, and then we also have the more established companies, and this perception that, since these companies are the big guys, they don't need grants anymore, and it's not true. They still need grants to enter new geographies, to continue with the R&D, to continue with the innovation. So definitely there is a very important role, and I am very glad to participate here today with AECF.
Carolina, thank you very much for your advocacy. Charles Mchungu, any last words from you?
To answer Vitek, or to comment on what Vitek said, I think that's very interesting. One of the opportunities I see is if pay-as-you-go businesses are aggregating 300,000, 100,000 plus rural off-grid customers, then surely that creates an interesting opportunity to do something else with these same customers. And I think there's very interesting opportunity for synergy there. But as my last remark, I see donors moving away from East Africa and saying, okay, we think the East African market is already developed. We don't need to put anything more there. Let's go to new territories. I see some logic there, but I think one thing we need to note is that if you look at the pyramid and you look at the solutions currently in the market, on the one hand, pay-as-you-go is still unaffordable for a large, significant majority of the population. And you need more affordable pay-as-you-go solutions. And that requires innovation. At the same time, I think there are really no solutions for the true bottom of the pyramid that are in the market. And I think we need to go in that direction as well.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Charles, and thank you for your activism over the years in this sector. And I am able to assure you that the AECF isn't moving away from East Africa, but we are a Pan-African institution, and we put a strong emphasis on our Pan-African reach. And it's great to have the example of what you have done in Kenya and in East Africa to share with the rest of Africa. So thank you very much for that. Jean-Philippe.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Final word in my part, I would say the AECF is, in my view, not because I'm with AECF, but one of the best models I have seen to try to reach really the rural pool. This concept of helping companies from the project concept and grow and getting innovation, and also going, whether if you take the sectors that we are taking, agriculture, agro-industry, the value chain, the companies supporting the value chain in between, and renewable energy, I think it's key to whatever we call poverty reduction, and it's a huge contribution. But more importantly, I think if we can continue to be a success as we are today and get the model to prove that there is no way back, I hope more AECF type of approaches will be used throughout the continent and the part of the world, because they have a huge impact, in my view, on poverty. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Jean-Philippe, and thank you for bringing us back to the reason why we as AECF, our development partners, our donors, are in this business. It is to combat poverty. It is to build sustainable and viable livelihoods in rural Africa. That's what it's all about. And we're glad to be working with you in the private sector, you in the voluntary sector, activists in the public policy space to that end. Thank you all for your participation this evening. The video will go up tonight on www.aecfafrica.org. www.aecfafrica.org. The video will go up tonight. We're going offline now, and we go offline with this one word that I learned during my 4.5 happy years in South Africa. And it is a word that sums everything up in terms of the task that lies ahead for us. It is simply this, vukuzenzele, vukuzenzele, which means simply, let's just get up and do it. Let's just get up and do it. Thank you all very much indeed. Good. Well done. Thank you very much. There's some refreshment at the back, and you've all earned it.